Hi friend, I'm Wai Jia and this is Dream Brave. Welcome to this great adventure. Without risk, there is no need for faith. Yet, so many of us hold back because the cost of saying yes seems too great. We forget that what we desperately hold on to is an illusion. The enchantment of security lulls us into taking risks every single day for ourselves while being immune to the call of risk-taking love on the Calvary Road of Christ. In this special season on risk, I interview ordinary Christians who've gone out on a limb to take extraordinary risks for God. My hope is that these stories will encourage you to put all you are on the line to obey God's call for your life, as you remember that thousands of decisions we make every day put us closer to the cliff's edge than the occasional clarion call to obey God. May these stories change your perception of risk-taking and empower you to recalibrate risk so you might, by faith, wisely take the risks He presents so that you may be thrust forth into the adventure He has waiting for you. If God has called you, then no matter what the cost, the risk will always be worth it. Not many of us would consider doing more for God as a huge risk. And yet, the risk of needing to feel recognized, to feel needed, to feel used by God, to use social media to boost our influence and earn our own platforms can put our own souls at risk. In this episode, I had a sobering conversation with a good friend, Hern Shung, who is a pastoral overseer at Trinity Methodist Church in Singapore, who speaks internationally and also organizes conferences for some of the biggest names in the Christian world in Singapore. We speak about the allure of public recognition and why he thinks we should make it our ambition to lead a quiet life, as in 1 Thessalonians 4:11-14. You might have heard Hern Shung speak about the Sabbath in one of our previous episodes in Season 1. Given his profile of often inviting and being around so-called big Christian names in national and international platforms and conferences, I had such a great time speaking with this humble friend about what keeps him anchored and grounded instead of seeking the shiny allure of being recognized on the Christian stage. Hern Shung, thank you so much for coming on again on our podcast. And this season, we're doing a series on risk. And I would love to ask you, what has been one of the greatest risks that you have taken in your life?
I have to give a caveat again first that before I
Go
start
ahead.
my friends know me as the biggest, the safest person that exists because, they'll ask me to do something adventurous and I'm always like, I'm calculating all the risks. Like, oh, what if this happens as well? But I think for me, if you ask me, the greatest risk has been for me to enter into full-time ministry. It was at a young age. So I decided after when at a certain young age that I want to give the best years of my life to God, and I decided to leave my whatever careers, jobs that I have, and to really go into this full time as well. Yeah, so I think that's the biggest risk.
Yeah, how was
Yeah.
that a risk? Like, could you unpack that a little for me? Because when you say at a young
Oh,
age, like how young do you mean? Like, do you mean like you didn't go to university or did you get a degree? Or what was the risk for you? Like, what was at stake?
so for me, the risk was I went to university, I got a degree, and everything. I was, I knew what career I wanted to go into as well.
What was
I
it?
was already working as well. I was in communications, so I did PR,
Oh,
marketing, and all those stuff as well.
right.
And so my mind was set on that. And along the way, I just felt really God calling me to go into ministry. Uh, and the wrestle that I had was, I'll do it a little later on.
Yeah.
Let me earn a bit of money. Let me get my career up and going. And then when it's all good and settled, and there's a good foundation, then maybe I'll do the switch over to full-time ministry down the road. But I
Right.
think for me, when the call came, it was very clear that um, I felt the call of God for the next generation, the young people, and the next generation deserves, like, I really felt God putting in my heart that they deserve the best years of my life. The younger
Wow.
years where I have the most energy for them as well. And I realized that it would be
Yeah.
really different if I did it at like 50 years old, right? I'm not going to be able to catch
Yeah.
up with them and everything. And so in my 20s, I decided, to quit my job, go into this full-time ministry. I did 3 years of Bible school and went to ministry. It's been
Wow.
10 years since as well. So a lot of the risks that I took was, when you go into ministry at a young age, you are almost lagging behind from the rest of your peers if you ever decide to go back into the marketplace at a later age
Yeah,
as well.
for sure.
So the risk I took was, I put my career on the line. I put any progression on the line. I haven't put any of my own dreams on the line in terms of, I want to get a good career,
Yeah,
live in a nice house, drive a nice car, the usual
right.
dreams that we usually have. So
Yeah,
that I think was the biggest risk where I thought, okay, you know what, this is something I'm gonna do, and I'm
yeah.
gonna go into as well.
I think a lot of people can echo what you shared about the idea of, let's just wait a little more. It's like
Mm,
when I felt God was asking me to do missions, and when I married Cliff, I thought to myself, you know what, maybe we can do this when we're older, like maybe when we've settled down, But it was only because of his his liver crisis that made me realize, oh my goodness, like I might not have him forever, and that was what really
mm.
propelled us forward. Was there like a particular incident or maybe something that God spoke to you that said, it has to be now. You can't wait like 6 months. You can't wait a year. It has to be now. Was there something that really just pushed you to say that, you know what, I'm just going to take the plunge?
Yeah, it was actually a retreat that we ran. I was a youth leader, and we ran a
Oh,
retreat in our church. And
mm,
in the retreat in our church, the retreat was called Encounter. The information that you don't really
mm,
need, but it was a retreat. And the last day, I think God really moved. Almost, dare I say, like for the first time in when I was in youth ministry, where you know we really saw the presence of God fall into place. Young people really encountered God in such a powerful way.
yeah,
And I remember walking away from the retreat, and there were all these testimonies that they were writing in, and we got them to submit what did God do in your life. And I was doing an internship back then in an office space, right? And I was sitting there during lunchtime reading it, and I just felt like, reading all these testimonies, my heart was so moved by it. And it was also that point I just felt like, hey, this is the best time for it. If God is up to something, you want to get into what God is doing as well. And so that
oh,
was a moment that I thought, you know what? I think this is it. I think this is maybe what I'm called to do. And I wasn't
mm,
hating my job, but I was finding a lot more joy in what I was doing in church and in ministry as well. So I think that was for me was a
oh,
very big pivotal moment
yeah,
that I
yeah.
decided to, let's go for this.
Wow, wow, wow. I think it's so important for all of us just to remember those moments, Han Sheng, as you were
Yeah,
sharing, it's like that pivotal moment where you know that this is what I'm called to, this is what brings me delight, this is what I really
exactly.
feel purpose filled for, and not let the things of the world kind of like draw us away. Have you ever had moments, in your ministry? Because especially when you are in full time so young, like all your
Mm,
friends like at our age right now they are like senior, like they are like directors or they're senior in
mm.
positions and whatever jobs that they've chosen. Have you ever like found yourself meeting up with them and then struggling, wondering, did I make the right choice? Maybe I should have done that. How has that process been like for you?
Oh, 100%, 100%. And it's something I still struggle with, like really
Mm,
honestly.
yeah,
I see, I meet up with my friends. A lot of my friends are people in marketplace, very successful people as well.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
I see, I hear of their progression. I hear of, how they've climbed up the ranks. At the same time, also, I see the lifestyle that they have.
yeah.
It's nice to go on many holidays,
Mm.
for them to go on a holiday to like maybe Europe for them is like, okay, let's just go. But for me, it's like, I calculate it very well. I just
Oh,
go
for
like,
sure.
do I really want to go on that?
Yeah.
And so for me, it's something that I do struggle with every day. There are days where I have to sit that back and just go, no, this is Hern Shung, this is the life that you kind of chose. Uh, but at the same time, I'm not saying that I've given up a lot because I think I come from a background where my family isn't. I mean, we're middle income, so we're
Yeah.
okay. I'm not deprived of anything, but
Right.
at the same time, it just makes me go like, okay, can I stand on the same ground as these guys as well? There are days that
Mm,
actually crosses my mind. Stand on the same
mm,
ground as my friends, and sometimes when you go and your conversations are there, they're talking
yeah.
about certain things, and you're less like, okay, what, I cannot relate to these things as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think for me that was a struggle that I continually struggle with, but at the same time, it's something that I have to constantly tell myself, like, hey, I think I've experienced a life that many people have not experienced. I think
Mm,
the rewards that I've gotten is
mm,
something that really, not many people have done. And I
Right.
also see the fruits and really the relationships that I've cultivated in ministry, and it's constantly reminding myself what's really important in life, seeing
Wow.
transformation, life change.
Yeah.
And that has to be the purpose, like you talked about, has to be something that helps to really overcome everything else. So I think that for
Wow.
me is it.
That is so moving, Hern Shung, because I think as you were sharing, I just had this vision of you amassing these are spiritual riches. They are
Mm,
intangible to the eye, but they are eternal inheritance that you have
mm,
stored up compared to, the money and the cars and the things that other people might store up in their barns, so to speak. You have
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So thank you for sharing that. One thing I'm really curious about is, but as you said that you took a risk to enter full-time ministry so early. The other thing I was thinking about was, in taking this route so early on, have you ever encountered people like giving you the look or maybe some condescension because they see you as such a young minister? Like, what do you have to offer? Because to me, that is a risk as well, to be a
Mm.
minister so young and then to go and preach or to go and speak somewhere and to have people say like, what's this young guy got to teach me? To me that's a risk. Was that a thing for you?
I think it was. I think it was. Now that I'm a lot older and now that I've been in church for a while, I actually told our people that actually when I first began in ministry, some of our church members would, after I preach, they'll come to me and just, oh yeah, I used to carry you when you're a young boy and everything like that. So it's very like, oh, that's very nice, auntie, very nice uncle kind of thing. But in your mind, it's just like, okay, you know what? In their eyes, I'm still that young boy as well. But I think
Yeah.
along the way, I mean, things really did change where I
Mm,
think a lot of times it's just for me to be faithful. And I think
yeah.
also in my mind that making sure that the authority that comes with the role comes not from me and my own credentials, but really comes from me doing what I have to do properly and rightly, which is preaching the word of God with authority, which is leading with
Wow.
integrity. And along the way,
Wow.
I think I'd like to think that that actually helped me a lot where now, things change, the conversation has changed. I'm no longer that young boy that they used to carry when we were much younger. But, I think
Absolutely.
along the way that has bought me a lot of currency of trust, of
Wow.
authority in the right areas as well. So I think that really helped along the way. Yeah.
Wow. Hajun, that is so good. I was just like amazed when you said, the authority that you have, it comes from God because you are walking in what He has called you to. So for many of us who are thinking about, trying out something new and being worried
Mm,
that maybe I'm not qualified, I think that is the hugest thing that looms over many, many people's minds. Maybe I'm not, what will people think? And yet what you're saying is so countercultural because you're saying it doesn't matter what people think, even if they coddle you and say, oh, you're that little boy
yeah.
that you're talking about. You are saying that you can walk out the authority that God has given to you because it comes from a heavenly place and nobody can take that away from you.
Mm,
And it's like what it says in Timothy, do not let anyone look down on you because you are young. Because
yep.
you're one of the people whom I would say, you speak with so much confidence and assurance that it definitely does come from a higher place.
Yeah, and I was just thinking about it actually recently, right?
Yeah.
It's part of my contemplation in of like thinking about my past decade in ministry on while I'm on sabbatical now.
Yeah.
And I just realized that, I think it's really the faithfulness to steward what God has entrusted to you, whether how big or how small, that really sets you up for what God wants to put you in the next season and the next place. What I mean by that
Wow.
is that, for me was that I don't carry a title, I'm not senior pastor of a church. I'm not, you
Mm.
know, and no, there's no fancy title. My title is boring. It was like it was ministry staff, pastoral staff, or pastoral overseer of this ministry. I
Right.
also don't carry any title of a reverend or a apostle or bishop or anything like that, right?
Mm.
But I think along the way, it's the faithfulness in doing the little things well and doing in stewarding the little things that God has placed in front of you well that slowly sets you up for God to entrust you and open doors for you for bigger things as well. And that's also where
Wow.
the authority and I think the opportunity comes as well. As
Mm.
I think back about life, I began ministry like really speaking to young people, 20 young people in a room. right? There are
Right.
days where a big part of my early years of Bible school and when I left Bible school was doing a chapel in a children's home that, the kids don't even listen to you, that you're trying to really just capture their attention for like 10 minutes and doing simple devotions with them. But
Yeah.
along the way, I think I'd like to think that it's these little faithful things that really slowly sets you up, and also like God honors that, He sees that, and it also gives you the authority as you grow into it. Yeah,
Yeah, thank you for just bringing us some perspective to that. Because I think a lot of people get disappointed or disillusioned when after taking such a major risk, and then they look at the day to day and they go like, "Oh my goodness, was this what I gave up my life for this?" And what you're saying is that actually, it's exactly in the small, in the mundane, in the ordinary things that God sets us up for the reward that comes later on that makes the risk worth it. But we might not see it today. We might see it like many years down the road. And now that you're 11 years into
yeah,
ministry, and I've seen all that you've done, all the lives that you've touched, all the conferences that you've organized where people have had true intimate encounters with God, I can safely say that for myself that, the risk that you took was worth it.
yeah. But I also think that the danger of that, right,
Mhm,
is
mhm.
thinking that God operates on a risk reward mentality.
Tell
You
us
know what I
more.
mean?
Yeah,
I
go
think the
ahead.
danger of that is if we're taking a risk, right? And we bring a very secular thought into this where,
Yeah.
okay, I take a risk, I'll get high rewards. The greater my risk, the greater the
Mm,
reward. I don't think that's like the way that actually things operate in that setting because it's a very dangerous setting. I'm not saying that God doesn't do it, but
yeah.
if we do it, then we're not actually thinking about obedience. We're thinking
True.
about what can I get from God at the end of the
That is
day,
true.
right?
That
So
is
I think
true.
that's a very dangerous thing about taking risks is that you have to
Mhm.
take the risk not because you got your eye on like I want greater things from God. I'm going to
Yeah.
do this because God, I know that you're going to give me a platform on a very big stage down the road, right? Because
Understand.
I think then that's a wrong risk to take already, and that's a
Right.
wrong mindset to begin with as well. I take the
Right.
risk because, um, you know, I take the risk because I'm faithful, I'm obedient to what God is calling me, and the reward will come as a gift, not as an entitlement. You know what I mean?
When you take a risk, the reward comes as a gift, not as an entitlement. That is so good.
Yeah.
That is so good, Hern Shung. I think it's funny that you say that. I think it's so important that we hold the tension almost. It's as if, you want to take a risk knowing that you trust that God will not let you down, that God is the exceedingly great rewarder. As it says in
Yeah.
Hebrews, that,
Yeah.
that we trust that when we put our faith in Him, He will never shortchange us. And yet, on the other hand,
Yeah.
it's so important to hold the other side of that rope, so to speak, to hold that tension, which you've so clearly pointed out, for us not to fall into the trap of God, I'm going to take this risk because I want the reward at the end.
Exactly.
You're actually telling us to go all in, saying that God, I'm willing to be 100% obedient to you, even if there is no reward. And yet having that
Exactly.
100% trust, knowing that God, I trust that you are the great reward. It's this huge paradox, isn't it?
Yeah.
That so much of Christ's life actually holds so many paradoxes, and yet He
Yeah.
wants us to hold that tension.
And I think the greatest danger sometimes, right, and with longevity in ministry,
Yeah.
right? And I see young people going into it, they're going hard and they get disappointed, disillusioned. And
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of times because for them, their mind is already on the reward sometimes, right? You know what? I've been
Mm.
doing this and everything. Like, why isn't the doors opening?
Right,
Why
right,
am I
right.
not on the biggest stage? And I think that's the danger sometimes when it comes to when we have this mentality of high risk equals high reward with God as well. And maybe
Right,
for us, sometimes like exactly what you said, like, there could be a possibility you do all these things, but you don't get the reward. But the reward can be unseen and eternal. And that's the most important thing as well, right? Is at the end of the day, the reward could be far down the track. And we see that a lot of times with the life of Moses, right? Takes a
yeah.
big risk, leads the people out, doesn't really see the reward of actually leading the people into the promised land at the end of the day, right?
Mm.
But at the same time, it's the risk not mean anything. No, it meant everything in eternity. It meant everything in the Bible. It's just that sometimes we don't have the perspective yet to realize that actually the reward may not come through us, but the reward will come through in the kingdom and the greater things as well. The other
Wow.
thing that I have to think about is that sometimes the reward that God wants to give us is very different from the reward that we want. You know, it's sometimes we think that, okay, God, I'm going to put a high risk, but this is what I want. this exchange and this transaction, and that can be very dangerous as well. Like, I'll give you an example for myself, right? That the greatest reward that I think I've experienced as a gift from God wasn't being able to go to places to speak or having platforms to speak. But for me, the
Yeah.
greatest reward was the ability to watch, to witness, and to be a part of watching two of the young people that I've grown up, and being able to preach at their wedding, and
Wow.
to really, get preach at their wedding and to walk closely with them. That for me was the greatest reward actually in ministry. Right? You asked
Wow.
me, I what's the one thing that's the greatest reward of fulfillment? That was it for me. Being able to watch some of these
Wow.
guys that I've watched grow up, get married, and them coming to me and says, Hern Shung, we want you to be a big part of our wedding, to
Wow.
what do you call it? Give us the exhortation and everything.
Han Sheng, now that we're talking about this whole risk reward, you even talked about this whole idea of the celebrity culture. Can you tell us
Mm,
how to guard against that allure of the reward? Because I think a lot of us who have put in or sacrificed for God, we exactly what you said. We have this idea that God, you're going to surprise me. And in the deepest, darkest recesses of our heart, I think we all pray that God, you'll know the desires of my heart and make them come true. And for some of us, maybe it's like praying for a relationship or praying for, something that I really, really, really want. How do we guard ourselves to make sure that we don't go into that mode of being enamored by what could be? Because when it doesn't happen, then that's where the disillusionment with God, that's where being burned happens.
oh, that's a very tough question. How do
Yeah,
we guard ourselves against?
yeah. You
I
know,
think it's. Sorry,
mhm.
please go ahead. No,
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 no.
you go
I,
first.
I mean, we've had so many lunch conversations about how this celebrity culture
Mm,
is can so insidiously penetrate the church, just like how we celebrate people in the secular world for their talents and achievements. That so often
yeah.
we end up celebrating like the special individuals in church as well, in Christian circles. That wow, you're such a great speaker. Wow, you're doing all these things. And we think to ourselves, well, that's normal. That person has, risked everything, for example, to be on that platform, and therefore he or she deserves to get that kind of attention. How do we make sure that we don't fall into this false narrative? Because this is so dangerous. And then we start thinking that it's okay for us to enjoy certain things because you know what? We have risked for God. And that can so easily turn into greed or more
Yeah.
than that. Yeah.
I think the greatest God is, I mean, especially in the day and age that we live in now, the greatest God is just to look around and realize that even the greatest will fall, that the higher you go, the harder you fall as well sometimes. And I think
Wow.
that's the greatest warning for us today. We see so
Mm,
much well-known individuals going all the way up, getting the biggest platform, but realizing that they are not invincible, that, um, you know, if you are not careful,
mm,
even you it can happen to even you as well. And I think that
wow.
for me, is the greatest warning as well, that, don't strive for, don't be ambitious for it, don't strive for it, I think, but really, really watch yourself as you go. I think, uh, in the Bible verse, it says, make it your ambition to live a quiet life, somewhere in the
Oh,
Bible.
wow.
I think I
Mm,
promise you it's in the Bible, but I just cannot remember what verse it is in now.
yeah.
But it says, make it your ambition to live a quiet life. And that's what
Mm,
Paul begins to tell us. And that maybe for some of us, we just need to, in this day and age where everyone wants publicity, everyone wants the platform, that maybe the great ambition is to live a quiet life and to strive to live a life by example, not by you trying to promote yourself, or trying to be ambitious to go somewhere with your qualifications or whatever. I don't know if that makes sense.
wow,
Yeah.
that is so good, Han Sheng. I
Yeah.
think both of us were equally impacted by the sermon that we came across. It was Francis
Francis
Chan's
Chan. Yeah.
the power
Yeah.
of a quiet life, and how
Yeah.
we need to be so intentional about moving away from the spotlight sometimes. And I
Yeah.
myself, Yeah, I mean, I myself struggle with that, on and off. I feel like I enter into seasons where God says, don't take up this engagement, or I just want you to be quiet with me. I want you to just go into this season of not being in the limelight. And those can be so humbling to know that we are actually all at risk of falling.
Yeah, 100%. And I think no, that something that you said was exactly it. Was actually, I think, was where I heard that verse from. It's sorry, I think I just remember it's in First Thessalonians chapter 4. I think it says, "Aspire to live a quiet life." And I think
Mm.
really that I think in that message, Francis says that everyone is chasing a bigger platform, but if God wants to give it to you, He'll give it to you. But if He doesn't want to give it
Wow.
to you, it's actually for your own good as well, because maybe He knows that you cannot handle it, that
Wow.
the platform cannot take the weight of your integrity yet. You know, yeah. So
Wow.
I think that's really um, we have a lot of people out there who are clamoring to be voices, especially now social media. Everyone
Yeah.
wants to be an influencer, everyone wants to be a voice, but
Mm.
Francis puts this really good thought that we need fewer voices but more examples out there. So let's talk more like living, yeah, in the right way as well. So
Wow.
I, I
That
I
is
think
so good.
that for me was also like a important like thought for me to okay, you know what? I'm not gonna try to promote myself in any way. Even how I
Wow.
use social media has changed, and you know it as well. Like you know me
Mm.
in social media that I've stopped using social media. Like I still use social media, but I'm just very careful what I post now on whatever social media. I post. I'm not trying to build my own kingdom ministry. I post. Sometimes I post a lot of stupid stuff like Blackpink and Taylor Swift, just for fun, but not to try to do any ministry or anything like that. Yeah.
I think what you've so highlighted to us is to be so aware of the risk that we take in terms of doing ministry for God, like doing more for God. I mean, many of our listeners, I'm sure, are not in full time ministry, but in some way or other, I think we are all seeking recognition, whether it's in our so called secular job or in even in the church. In
Mm.
in we want to all be seen as doing good for others, being recognized for what we are doing. And what you're saying is that we need to be so intentional to move away from that. What is your motivation for doing so? Like, what do you think can encourage people to move away from this allure, because it is so attractive? It's so attractive to be seen, to be
Mm.
recognized, to say that, to be in a place where people just see that you are good and you're doing good for the kingdom.
I think the greatest maybe the thought is that at the end of the day, no one remember you. You know, you can be a voice out there, and the
Yeah.
next day another big voice will come on, and people will go to that voice as well. But when you
Mm,
focus on the main thing and keep the main thing, which is life on life exchange relationships, that's where people remember you. That's where the true deposit is. I'm not
mm,
demeaning the voices out there. I think that's important, especially in a world where there's so many voices. We do need voices. We do need good Christian voices out there to give a new narrative to our world, to give a new reference point for the world that we live in.
mm,
But at the
mm.
same time, don't make that the main thing. At the end of the day, remember that the true legacy is in the lives that we've touched, the transformation in people's lives. And remember that the true deposit also is when it happens, especially in the lives that we minister to, not in a platform as well. Yeah.
Wow.
Just be very aware that in social media now, people can fast forward you, people can swipe you away as quickly as
Yes.
that as well. So I think that's the most important thing.
Wow. Thank you, Hern Shung. That is such a sobering thought, to know that we're we're actually not indispensable. It's
Oh,
such a
100%.
humbling, sobering thought to know that God doesn't need us. Rather, the privilege that we have to partner with Him is a gift.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Mm.
Now I really recognize why you're the person you are. this
In what way?
conversation this conversation really took a turn that I never imagined, because you started off by saying that you are a very safe person, and that you don't take risks, you like to be in your comfort zone. But the amazing thing is, I see your life living in full-time ministry as something that is courageous because you're at the front line of risk every single day. I see you organizing conferences for like the biggest names in the world. And I think that you've seen up close the attraction that it can give, the allure that it could give you. And yet you choose to live such a humble, quiet, faithful life. And for me, that is courageous and that is risk personified because you live it every single day to make it to make it your ambition to live a quiet life.
I
So
guess, yeah. I mean, thank you for that.
yeah. You don't
Yeah.
quite know how to respond, but
I
yes,
I
I see
I
that.
I
I see that you're living it. You are living
I
it.
have to, I also have to say that you give me too much credit. I don't do that much in the conferences. Yeah. I mean,
Oh,
there are people that are actually doing a lot more. So yeah, but at the same time, I guess, yeah. I mean, I think you summed it up. That I think maybe one of the greatest risks now that you put it into perspective for me is that I do want to make it ambition to live a quiet life and make sure that
mm,
my life promotes. It's not my social media or the words that I say that promotes it, but just like, I just want to make sure that the way I live is the way that people remember me by, not by
wow.
my Instagram or anything like that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think
Yeah.
that that's really what I think is important. Yeah.
Wow. That is so good, Hern Shung. Thank you for sharing that. It just reminds me of recently I was at a talk to a group of medical students,
Mm,
and one of them during the Q&A asked me quite an awkward question. I felt very vulnerable sharing it, but he just asked in front of everybody, and he said, Wai Jia, with all the all this like the publicity or the interviews and all that, like how do you stay humble before God, right?
mm,
And like in all honesty, I just told him, I said, there's this verse in the Bible about how, at the end of the day, all our works will be tested by fire.
yeah.
And honestly, Hansheng, like when we look at our lives, how we've lived it, all the accolades or awards or the titles that people give us,
Mm,
sometimes I really wonder, like when we get to heaven and all this goes through the fire, what will
mm,
be left? What will be left?
yeah.
And I remember listening to Christine Kane speak once, and she said, there's this verse as well. Don't let your right hand know what your left hand is doing. And the Lord asked her before, at the end of the day, is there anything in your life where nobody knows about that I can celebrate? And that for
Yeah.
me was so humbling and sobering. And I think that helps to keep me on edge, knowing that it's never about what people celebrate or recognize us for that will get us into the kingdom of heaven, but it's the everyday risk that we take in doing ministry for God, and yet knowing that we need to stay humble because
Yeah.
God is God and we are not.
Yeah. I remember attending a memorial service of a pastor, and someone said there that, this person may not have been known on earth,
Yeah.
but he's known in heaven and known by God. And I thought that was such
Mm,
a beautiful thought. He wasn't I mean, in our earthly sense, this guy, which I'm not going to say, actually did incredible things for the kingdom. He's, planted so many churches, but
wow.
he does not have the same name as, some of the big mega church pastors that international.
Mm,
But he faithfully does what he does. And the greatest
mm,
comfort is that don't strive to be known on earth, strive to be known in heaven, and to be known by God. And exactly what you said, at the end of the day, all these, so what if we get all these like accolades here as well?
mm,
These are not what gets us into heaven, right? It's the one voice that
mm.
says, "Well done, good and faithful servant," that really truly
Wow.
matters at the end of, and in eternity as well. Yeah.
Wow. This is a great place to land, Hern Shung. Thank you so
Mm,
much for sharing with us, this how to balance risk taking and just being a vessel of God humbly
mm,
with that posture of humility, knowing that, we are just servants of the Most High. Yeah. Yeah. I
yeah.
want to end by asking you this question. Complete this line for me. Take a risk for God because...
Take a risk for God because he took the greatest risk for you. I know that sounds cheesy, but that's the gospel. That when we had nothing to offer to him, Romans tells us that while we were still sinners, while we had nothing at all to offer to him, he sent his son down to die for us. And I think our response of risk taking is a response to what Christ has done for us. And it's an
Wow.
obedience. It's an obedience and a response of obedience to what God has done for us as well. Yeah.
Wow. That's so good. Thank you so much, Hern Shung. It was so good to have you on this episode on
Thanks for
risk.
having me.
It totally took a different direction, but it was so good. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Wow, what a sobering conversation about the perils of celebrity culture. Well, some of our best episodes come from people that you've recommended or people that we know. So if you know someone you'd love for me to interview, or if that person's you, please drop me a note at hello@kitedreams.org. I hope this blessed you.